And we're back for an all-new episode of Keep It. It's Election Day, and I'm Ira Madison III.
I'm Louis Fertel, and yes, I opted to cut through the dramala on my ballot. Using my Pamela, I wrote it in. If you saw SNL this weekend, you saw Kamala Harris on it. Pretty good comic performance, honestly. I mean, like, I guess there's not much wiggle room to do anything eccentric, but it was, like, perfectly enjoyable, her doing a little tete-a-tete with Maya Rudolph.
Oh, they were ready to Ishbal from the minute. The giggling started immediately, and honestly, I would have been doing the exact same thing. I saw last night online that she was knocking on doors in Pennsylvania, and there was some tweet from someone that was like, imagine you've taken an edible for the night and then Kamala Harris is at your door. I wouldn't even know.
Sure
I'd be cracking up.
Yeah,
I would be cracking
kidding.
up just seeing her in general. We'd be laughing for 30 minutes, and then I'd say, what are you here for, girl?
I also just want to say, like, you know, people talk about that she's giggling a lot, laughing a lot. Honestly, it is a terrific look for her. Laughing, I mean, she should be in, like, a Neutrogena commercial. It, like, absolutely works for her as an aesthetic. Now, I was going to start on a grim note, which is to say a question for you, a bit of an essay question for you.
Is this about Katy Perry?
Not yet. That's not a question. We got a definitive answer on that one. The question is, from a taste perspective, what is the most Republican thing about you?
Oh, taste-wise?
Yeah. Like, what do you kind of stand that unfortunately puts you in the MAGA community? And I know you're MAGA secretly, so it's not a big deal.
Don't tell people that. I mean, well, listen, I do miss Aida and her Joe Rogan listening ways.
Oh, I forgot that component of her. You know, the word chaotic is overused, but I think safely, if you look into the OED, you'll see Aida cackling under chaotic.
You know what? I think mine is probably like CBS network procedurals.
Sure. Oh, that's a great answer, because you're absolutely tapped into like the Kansas, Missouri community with that.
Yeah. What about you?
Well, I love Pat Sajak. And as you know, if you take 1 second to Google what he thinks about anything, good luck. You're in a vortex, and you can't buy enough vowels to get out of it. Otherwise, I will say that maybe this is kind of MAGA-esque of me. I am a sucker for, because I think MAGA kind of means you're yearning for the 50s and 60s, right? Like a wholesome America. And I will say I am taken with entertainment from that time and about that time. So put me into A Far From Heaven, put me into, you know, like the movie Rear Window or something, but the movie Carol. So I love the grisly underpinnings of suburbia, things like that.
Well, I do like whites only bubblers.
It's just sweeter somehow. I don't know.
Bring back segregation. That's what I really love.
Oh, we used to have such a good time at a Woolworths. Please.
Yeah, no, I brought up Katy Perry, by the way, because obviously, you know, the election bonanza is here this week. And if you're listening to this episode, maybe the election's been decided. I
hate that we have to tape this moment. I hate it. I want to just be tomorrow. Sorry, everybody. We're back here.
Yeah. Sorry, we're not Pod Save America. We don't get Let's Do It Live updates here at Keep It.
I love comparing them to Bill O'Reilly, as they prefer.
But I was watching, you know, the last thrust of Election Day coverage that was happening last night before today. And obviously, Lady Gaga and Katy Perry did dueling performances at rallies. And one, putting aside Katy Perry and the singing.
Right, which is already a lot. You've already been very liberal with this.
You know what? There are some songs that she could have done, okay? She chose to do The Greatest Love of All.
Which, as you know, is not a Katy Perry song.
Yes.
It's actually by an artist named Whitney Houston. And I don't know if you know this about this song. She hits a high note in the song, and the high note is on the words, "My Dignity." So, Katy chose that. We'll start
Mama, she was singing off key on the record, on the stage. If you are a Buffy fan, it reminded me of Charisma Carpenter in season 1 singing that song for the talent show. in the episode Puppet Show, and it sounded just like that.
Oh my
So
God. She went
weird
horse.
choice.
It was a horse note she hit.
A dark horse note.
And the ketamine couldn't have hit me fast enough. That's the dark horse I wanted to be in that moment.
I get that when it's election time, when you are getting on that stage, particularly when you are on the Democrat side, I think if you're at a Republican thing, it's sort of like, it's a free-for-all, you know?
Right.
She could have sang Peacock.
No, you could do The Devil Went Down to Georgia and play the violin yourself. Yeah.
But when you get up there and it's for, unity, stronger together, that was the Hillary slogan. And, we are not going back, etc. You always have to do something that's a little moving. But, Katie, you have moving songs.
Right. I was moving out of the arena when she sang that, which I don't believe was the intention.
Also, as a superstitious person, I don't know how I feel about asking Katie to perform right before the election as she did for Hillary.
Excuse me, I was watching a news clip randomly, and Aaron Burnett was asking somebody, well, some people are reminded of the fact that Katy Perry performed for Hillary 8 years ago, and there was a sense of inevitability about Hillary's win, and then we all know what happened. Excuse me, the news was on to her as an albatross.
In better performances, Lady Gaga came out at her rally and she did 2 performances. First, she did God Bless America. She loves, a little, she has MAGA tendencies, okay? She's very jingoistic.
Oh, no. And she loves, again, her whole thing is, I've heard of old music. And that could be any old music, dubious
Actually,
otherwise.
The vibe I have in common with her is also a MAGA thing that I have. I love a dive bar. I love a Miller High Life. Like, I love a shitty beer.
Yeah, no, your middle name is also Joanne, and you want to put your grandma on the record talking about that.
And so she performed God Bless America. I thought it was lovely. And then Kamala came out and spoke, and then she ended the rally with The Edge of Glory.
Nice choice. Yes, something epic, sweeping that she can definitely sing. Am I misremembering? I don't remember any Lady Gaga performance that she really, I don't want to even say botched, but like we all came out being like, oh, that was weird.
No, but someone was sharing a clip online when she performed at an event that Bill Clinton was at and did sing Government Hooker.
Okay, sometimes I'm worried she's not funny anymore. What is that?
Bring also, that Gaga back.
Not really a song I need to hear live. It's like a pretty like studio produced-y track.
Oh, it's kind of iconic and like techno-y live. I love it.
Okay, well, that restored some faith I actually didn't know I needed to be replenished.
Speaking of Gaga, though, last week we talked about how much we liked Disease and the return to form with this song, and then the video came out that night after we recorded. So what do you think of the Disease video?
Well, as I said, I love a gross underpinnings of suburbia moment, and that's exactly what we got in the video. Appreciate the video, really like the video, just short of love for me. I don't know. It's not something I'm seeking out as a return. I think maybe her performance in the video is something I've seen from her before, just as the song is something I've heard from her before. I don't find myself replaying the song, really. What do you think?
I am replaying the song, actually, a bit. I quite like the song. The video, it feels almost not Gaga enough. It feels too short in a way, because I get the underpinnings of suburbia thing. I get her fighting with herself. She wrote this long essay on Instagram about how, she's fought with herself and etc. Whenever she gets into like theater kid mode and is writing essays on Instagram, we're cooking. So I loved that. But I don't know, going back to like the Married in the Night video, which was also long, very thriller-esque, apropos, because we're going to be talking about Quincy Jones later this episode, but the thrillerness of that video, it felt like we should have gotten the sort of theme of the video, and then like where were the dance moves?
Yeah,
like I wanted the dance part of the video to happen.
I think the best of Lady Gaga, namely from the Born This Way era, is this sort of like supercharged Red Bull feeling, and I feel like we're missing some sort of a classic Gaga urgency here, even though she does get into the grotesque thing she loves to do.
Yeah, but otherwise, I'm pleasantly surprised, and I'm on board for the new era.
And we don't have any updates on when we're getting that album yet, do we?
No, but I feel like it's coming soon.
Yeah, I feel like she'll surprise us and hit us with it, right? Or is that just something she does for the albums she doesn't like that she releases, like that Joker shit?
When Kamala wins, she'll be like, "Here, have it."
Oh, okay. You know what? Honestly, you might be onto something. So,
yeah. If not, she's gonna vanish, and we'll never hear from her again
until she lands the next headache medicine deal or whatever.
Yeah. All right. So I already said that we're discussing Quincy Jones this week. He passed on Sunday. That was sort of, every time we hear about a celebrity death, it always hits like a surprise, even though this one didn't really hit like a gut punch, mostly because he's in his 90s. And I just remembered his old documentary, Quincy, which takes place around 2015 when he was in sort of a diabetic coma for a few days and came out of it. And there is this moment in the documentary where he tells his daughter, Rashida Jones, who directed the documentary and who we just had on Keep It literally a few weeks ago, that there was a moment where he was gone and he was, reflecting on his life. And then he came back and he was like, "It's not time for me to go, but when I'm ready to go, I'm going to go."
Well, I mean, that's sort of in tune with the nature of his musical output. Just like he always did what he wanted to do, really. Like when you listen to his music in any form, whether it's something he produced or something he's directly a part of, it's him responding exactly to that moment. He never felt like he was chasing something old, even if he was bringing old influences in. We'll get into this. And I was, of course, thinking about our interview with Rashida Jones, because she also has a brilliant recollection of his entire career. So go back and listen to that if you want even more insights on him, but we'll get to all that momentarily.
Yeah. And I mean, going when you want to go, going right the day before the election, good choice.
Yeah, right. I hear you. Yeah.
I'm not taking any chances.
Yeah, it's been good. Let's cut it off here.
Also, we're going to talk about another American icon this week. Martha Stewart's documentary dropped on Netflix this week, and it was nice to revisit Martha Stewart's history as well. She's like a big piece of American popular culture on the opposite side of music. Revisiting the trial when she went to prison and just sort of her rise in general. It was nice to see Martha's story just sort of laid out there in the documentary.
And also, like Quincy Jones, she's somebody who emerged fully complete. The Martha Stewart now was exactly what was presented when she was releasing a book called Entertaining all these years ago. And she was this brand immediately. It was cool to revisit. There's another CNN documentary months and months ago that we talked about a little bit, but this one she's interviewed on tape. And of course, Martha has quibbles herself with this documentary, which we'll get into also.
And our guest this week is an American icon in the making.
Quite.
We have the fantastic Janelle James from Abbott Elementary as our guest this week.
I was already a fan of hers, but last year she hosted the WGA Awards, and she obviously operates mainly as a stand-up comic in addition to being an actress, and it's such a pleasure to see her work a room. We were in the palm of her hand, so we'll get into that too.
Every week we try to walk into the studio and talk about something other than a celebrity's death, but Mamma Mia, here we go again. Which, you know what? If you told me he produced for ABBA, I would believe you if you told me Quincy Jones produced an ABBA album.
Oh, please. I would look up an interview where he was like, Anna Fried was that bitch in the studio. When she gets on the mic, Agnetha, when she hits that high note. I'm kidding. Agnetha's never hit a high note, but okay.
The legend we've lost this time is Quincy Jones, who died Sunday night at the age of 91. As one of, if not the most prolific producers of his generation, his legacy is too vast to dissect in just this episode, but we're going to get into as much of it as we can.
I mean, he may have the definitive entertainment career. I mean, going back, this is somebody who was an avid performer, successful performer in the 1950s. Going into, this is somebody who collaborated with Amy Winehouse before her death. on a cover of It's My Party, I believe, which, of course, he produced the original. He was Leslie Gore's producer in the 60s. So already you should be tripped out by the bevy of abilities he had and interests he had. He was a jazz performer. He, of course, produced Thriller and Off the Wall with Michael Jackson and Bad. And then he himself was a well-known performer, and he has an album called Back on the Block from the late 80s that won the Album of the Year Grammy. And I would start there if you're trying to get into the career of Quincy Jones, as it pertains to just him, not producing other people, because all of his interests are compiled on this one album. He collaborates with everyone from Ella Fitzgerald to Big Daddy Kane to 13-year-old Tevin Campbell. So everything is there. And also it's the late 80s, so you get production that sort of sounds like the Rhythm Nation or Control era Janet Jackson too. But plenty of songs on that album I like, including, which I brought up with Rashida Jones, One Man Woman, which is a song he did with Saida Garrett, who you probably know from working with Michael Jackson. She co-wrote Man in the Mirror. Start there. There's a lot going on, including a cover of the Brothers Johnson's I'll Be Good to You, which in this case has Ray Charles and Chaka Khan on it. It is just a fabulous song. I love Quincy Jones the most when he's making party music, when he's in a party mood.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you brought up It's My Party by Leslie Gore, which a lot of people always reference when they talk about music that he did in the 50s. But let us not forget one of his other songs with Leslie Gore is also You Don't Own Me, which is, both of those songs are just big millennial songs. It's My Party popularized for us probably in the Problem Child films.
Yeah. Oh my God, you're right. I've forgotten to associate it with that. The idea. This is why you come to Keep It, so that I can tell you that Quincy Jones is directly responsible for Problem Child.
And then, of course, You Don't Own Me, which is the big climax in First Wives Club.
And additionally, Cate Blanchett one time went to Stonewall and lip synced You Don't Own Me as a drag performer alongside drag artists. She just came out as Cate Blanchett. This is a moment in popular culture that needs to be brought up way more often. Why don't people are so nice to me when they are Keep It fans. They come up to me and talk about anything. Why not this? Bring this up when you find me, because I'm still unpacking it mentally. This was about 2016, I think. She was a performer at Stonewall and was, of course, fabulous. I mean, imagine Cate Blanchett on stage not being insane.
Well, you could have talked to her a bit more about that, if you weren't just talking about Notes on a Scandal with her.
Well, as you know, and as she diagnosed, I have an obsession.
There's Leslie Gore, and then obviously Frank Sinatra. He had a big part.
Peggy Lee, Jesus Christ. Yeah.
What's so interesting is as I was watching the documentary from a few years ago, Quincy, and when you talk about someone who has just had the definitive career, it is Frank Sinatra. There's a clip where Frank introduces him, and he says, here's this young man, Quincy Jones, that I'm working with, who's like he's going to be a big star in orchestrations. And it's like, imagine if that was the only thing that he had ever done.
Right. No, exactly. No, he's like a Barbra Streisand person. If you limited his output to just the first 10 years of his career, he would already be Kennedy Center worthy before he even got to working with Michael Jackson. And let's just talk about the kind of music that produced. Off the Wall first. I've brought this up before. Don't Stop Till You Get Enough. When they're making that song, how were they not thinking, well, here it is, the best dance song ever? I mean, nothing up to that point. In disco alone, matched the verve of that song, the drive of that song, the sexuality of that song. It mixed with that kind of Michael Jackson whimsicality that we associate from the Jackson 5. That album in general has that album has a lot of the ballad feel that Quincy Jones loves. A little bit later in the 80s, he had a couple of charting tracks with James Ingram, one of the great ballad singers. Look those up too. Off the Wall, I think start to finish, maybe tells you everything you need to know about Quincy Jones as a producer.
Yeah, I love that album. It's also a Michael Jackson album that is perfect from start to finish, which Thriller is not.
Oh, you must be referencing The Lady in My Life, which is a song. She's not the lady in my life. Maybe somebody else's life. But that said,
it's not even the song on my playlist.
No. Well, also, The Girl Is Mine is on that album, which has
Yeah.
him and Paul McCartney. And first of all, obviously, if you want those two people to collaborate, you want to listen to Say, 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 which was a huge hit. But The Girl in My Life, not only a bad song, a bad first single from Thriller. The idea that that would springboard the biggest album of all time is so mind-boggling.
Yeah. You brought up Shaka Khan.
Likely thing for me to do, yes.
You're actually the intro to I Feel For You. It's you saying Shaka Khan in the background.
It's me just muttering it. They compiled it from a bunch of Keep It podcasts.
Imagine that was just like what you heard when she walked into a room. Anytime.
Oh, that would be great. I'm sure you still can arrange that. Go to Long Beach Pride. She's there right now.
But he worked on the album Master Jam from Shaka Khan and Rufus. The song Body Heat is fantastic. And Quincy Jones also has an album called Body Heat from the 70s. I think it was probably after the documentary, but I got into a lot of his jazz records. And I had never really been much of a jazz person, but I think it was like an intro to him and then like some old Ella albums that like it became writing music for me. And now I'm a big jazz person. So Body Heat is great. And of course you have to mention big band Bossa Nova, which was his foray into Brazilian music. And also one of the singles from it is the Austin Powers theme song, which is crazy.
No, that like they just took that music and then put it into Austin Powers. It's bizarre. But also it gets into the fact that he was such a prolific film score composer too. He in the 60s sort of elevated his career working on movies, and he has 7 competitive Oscar nominations. He never won any, but he did get the Gene Herschel Humanitarian later in his career. But he wrote scores for, among other things, the movie The Pawnbroker, which stars Rod Steiger. But that was always a key part. Like, I think that's something that's interesting about him. Like, when you hear something like, oh, he's a great jazz musician, that doesn't always mean that your music applies to the masses. And then you hear that he's a film scorer, and I feel like that means he was always keyed into what the public didn't know it wanted to hear.
Yeah, I mean, there is Bob and Ted and Carol and Alice.
One of my favorite movies from the 60s, if you've not seen it, with Natalie Wood and Diane Cannon, Robert Culp, Elliot Gould. It's about sexual musical chairs. It has sort of a hippy-dippy message at the end, but it is a great movie with a great performance from Diane Cannon. And Jesus Christ, Natalie Wood had amazing hair.
Yeah, and in the Heat of the Night, the original The Italian Job. I love both Italian Jobs, but the music in the original Italian Job is fantastic. If you're talking about someone who was scoring soundtracks at the time and sort of really just influencing the culture and what movies should sound like, I feel like the only person really doing that currently is our Trent Reznor and Atticus Finch.
Please, and I still put on the Challengers soundtrack from time to time when I'm doing anything. If you want to make yourself believe there's a big occasion coming, like, oh, I'm going to the polls, put on the Challenger soundtrack and it will make you feel like a sexual warlord as you head there.
I want to talk about an artist that a lot of people might not know that he produced for, but Donna Summer.
A timeless music I refuse to put away.
Yeah, Quincy worked with her on her 82 album, which was self-titled, Donna Summer. And this came after her previous album, The Wanderer, did not really sell because she primarily worked with Giorgio Moroder. Like, right. They were the duo. And so David Geffen at the time did not like the sales of that previous album. So he made her work with Quincy Jones on this album. She was pregnant at the time, so she sort of like doesn't love that period from making the album. But Quincy Jones is on that album. She has the song Protection that Bruce Springsteen wrote is on that album. It's a really, really underrated Donna Summer album that sounds fantastic.
Were you also not disappointed when Donald Trump was like playing with that microphone over the weekend and, miming blowing it, and nobody brought up, stop ripping off Donna Summer, bitch. That is her game. When she's at the mic, she's filleting it.
I don't want to think of 17 minutes of Donald Trump moaning.
Oh my God. I would love if he, for one time, I mean, not that she would okay it. Well, you never know with Donna Summer. But if he could play anything but YMCA legally. So if he did play Love to Love You Baby, it might interject some necessary sexuality into the Republican Party or what's left of it.
Well, she's dead.
Right. His favorite kind of artist, because they can't interject. I mean, we must talk about Thriller also. As Rashida Jones brought up, this is an album he produced when he was 50 years old. Imagine being that tapped in and ahead of the game years and years after you've had this career, after you've had every kind of career. You know, a film scorer, a jazz musician, a solo artist in your own right. Thriller, we've talked about the tracks we don't like on it. What would you say is your favorite track on Thriller?
My favorite track on Thriller is...
I'm going to guess. Is it Human Nature?
You know what? I do love that song, but honestly, I think it's Beat It. I just love the opening chorus to that song.
Yes. Well, also, classic thing for Quincy Jones to do, just inserting an Eddie Van Halen guitar riff in the middle of it. You know, I think he's so restless, he can't help but put two genres together a lot of the time. As I said, referring to his album of the year winning Back on the Block, there's a lot of jazz pop on that album, like jazz fused with things like rap. I think when you have a career that's that long and that prolific, you can't help but make hybridizations of things you love.
Right. I was listening to this podcast, Doom Scroll, recently with Matty Healy from the 1975. It is just sort of talking about how producing music now, it's a lot of people sort of borrowing from the past, but not really borrowing from the past, just sort of giving you pastiche. You know, it is, he's just, you know, not
like
Amy
Michel
Winehouse,
Ndegeocello said about Bruno Mars. Yes, I remember that interview. Yes, I remember.
But yeah, Bruno Mars, you know, even Amy Winehouse at the time, Adele, you know, he was just talking about how when you listen to decades of music in the past, you immediately know what decade it is, right? But now, you know, past maybe like 2009, you're listening to music, and the popular music of the time, you would not know it's like the 2010s or the 2020s, because it is all music that is made to sound like music we already have. And I think that one thing that Quincy Jones did was he borrowed from the past, but he didn't replicate it. Like throwing an Eddie Van Halen guitar riff into, you know, a pop R&B song is doing something different. It wasn't just, I'm going to remake a Van Halen song. It was, no, I'm going to mix these elements together into something new. And the fact that he was 50 when he did this, I think it's just a testament to the fact that despite the industry's music, Hollywood, whatever's sort of obsession with youth culture, it's that if you're talented and you're older, like it really doesn't matter what fucking age you are if you're tapped into the culture.
He was determined to make music that belonged to that moment. Like we're living here now and it belongs here. I've heard of all this other shit and I can bring it in, but I'm going to make sure you know that this is from this particular moment. We should also bring up his skills as an interviewee, because if you have not read the Vulture interview, and obviously people are like handing out these quotes left and right, like recalling how funny and blunt he was, namely later in his career. But some of these quotes are so funny. I mean, like he has a story about telling Ringo Starr to go get a sandwich so he can bring in a real drummer on a track and finish it off. I mean, it's so casually insulting.
And then also everything that he had to say about Marlon Brando, fucking everybody left and right.
He's fucking James Baldwin. I mean, it was going, he just dropped the names.
I think everyone was sharing quotes from that interview. That was David Marchese who did that interview. Every single quote in that's a banger.
No, it's the sense of somebody who refuses to be bored, which I think is what we get out of our best artists. You know, people who monotony is not an option. I actually usually say this about gay men, something that unites us as a community, seemingly. You know, the reason why it's always party after party on party weekends, and like, we're going to go to this destination, it's going to take forever to get there, and you have to take a train and a bus and or whatever. A refusal to be bored. There is something that unites, I think, maybe all queer people, but I seem to notice it among the crack-eyed gays.
I mean, also, just the best interviews you're always going to get is from someone who's been in the game for a minute. That's why I loved Stevie Nicks' recent interview in Rolling Stone.
Oh, yes. Well, let me tell you something about Stevie Nicks. She was the musical guest on Jimmy Kimmel yesterday, and I went to the rehearsal, and I stood as close as I could. I mean, I would describe my behavior as creepy. It was not normal. I'll give you one guess who was on my shirt. That would be Christine McVie, her best friend. She performed The Lighthouse, which is the song she also did on SNL a couple weeks ago. And then she did Stand Back, which is exactly what I didn't do. I moved forward to dance to Stand Back.
I mean, people don't often compare, Stevie Nicks and like Michael Jackson, but, if you're thinking about the music from that era and music that you still want to listen to now from the early 80s, that's dance music that feels timeless because it doesn't feel like it's music that is trying to be the 80s. It's not an album from the Romantics.
No, precisely.
Not to knock the Romantics.
Or Depeche Mode or whomever. Yeah, right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I don't know why I'm throwing strays at them. Which, by the way, The Cure just released a fantastic new album.
Oh, I believe they just performed also at Kimmel. I didn't see their performance. I Will Key and Friday on I'm in Love is one of the great pop songs.
Yeah, and it's unlike their previous other music, so they're also moving forward, like all artists should do.
I just want to shout out one other song that I brought up in our interview with Rashida, which is Stuff Like That, a song from the late 70s that involves Ashford and Simpson, very underrated musical duo. I'm sure you all know Solid as a Rock. I think the song is just called Solid. And also Shaka Khan. Shaka Khan may be, Michael Jackson aside, the greatest Quincy Jones collaborator. And also Shaka Khan, come on, keep it. What? You can't be hoarding all these interview skills from us. I'm sorry. When she said Joan Baez can't write and honestly she can't sing, say that here.
Another jazz artist that I want to just highlight before we depart is Sarah Vaughan.
Oh, yes, she's also on Back on the Block, which is crazy. Yeah. Sweet and sassy Sarah Vaughan.
Her voice is fucking phenomenal. And she worked with Quincy on, I believe it, like she sings the Mancini songbook, and then like another one like Vaughan and Violins. But you were never going to go wrong listening to a Sarah Vaughan album. And when I was getting into jazz, like Sarah Vaughan is just someone I immediately sort of gravitated to.
We talk about monoculture and how like certain things from the past aren't delivered to people anymore. Like people have no inroads to hear certain music or see certain TV shows. I am so sorry to say this. This is why Starbucks is important. Because you walk into one and maybe, as it was yesterday, Sarah Vaughan is playing. I don't know where else you're going to hear that. Like we don't have many Linens emporiums anymore. I don't know where you're going to hear this music.
Yeah, and also I want to say that we know how Quincy felt about the Beatles. And he didn't work on this album with her, but Sarah Vaughan has an album where she does Beatles covers, and he preferred that to any song the Beatles probably ever did.
No, precisely. And also, I believe in one interview, the same one from Vulture, he claimed to know who shot Kennedy. So he went to the grave with some secrets we'll never know.
I think that's a good introduction to Quincy Jones if you are not that familiar with him. But yeah, listen to our Rashida Jones interview. We talk a bit about her mother, Peggy Lipton, as well. So just even getting into that relationship, there is so much to talk about, too.
A fabulous Hollywood family.
And I mentioned this earlier in the episode, revisiting the Quincy documentary, he talks about how, when he was ready to go, he would know it. And I think one of the bittersweet things about that documentary, it talks about Ray Charles is gone, Leslie Gore is gone, Michael is gone. And I think that for someone who has had such a prolific career for so long, everyone he's worked with and everyone he's been friends with is dead. So
I think about that all the time. Like when I get to interact with Jane Fonda from time to time, literally almost everybody she made a movie with through the 60s is gone. Like she is the sole survivor of all these movies. I think that must be a crazy feeling.
Yeah, so, if you are a religious person and you believe in the afterlife, I'm sure that you feel that Quincy Jones is probably much happier being reunited with people that he used to work with.
I hope they didn't greet him with We Are the World. Like I think he's made better music. But like, what else are they all going to sing together, You
know what? I hope that there is an afterlife where all of them are just in the studio waiting for Quincy Jones to arrive. And then he gets there and he says, all right, we're going to fix this song once and for all.
and Cyndi Lauper's not here yet to mess it up with her jewelry.
Should we wait for No. And we are back with our favorite segment of the episode. It is Keep It let me tell you something, Louis. When I went to my polling place to deliver my ballot, which I had to mail anyway, but I wanted the sticker, so
of course
I had to get myself a little sticker. I was drinking a soy latte. I was checking out the bodies, and the room was full of hotties. I was satisfied.
You're living an American life.
I want to let everyone know if you are ever like on the fence about just getting to your polling place, there are hot people who are voting.
Oh, that was the takeaway from this. Okay.
Yes,
sure.
There's like swipe right at the polls.
Once you're in the booth or out of the booth or whatever. Yeah, got it.
Yes.
I thought this was going to be about Madonna's 2003 artistry and her career as a rapper, but all right, I'll take it.
I mean, I am always listening to the American Life album. If you want to talk about underrated albums from people, that album has actually some of my favorite Madonna songs.
I would say it has a couple of. I love that song. I think they're all mid-tier.
Nobody
Madonna
Knows
songs.
Me.
Yeah, right. Petulant. It's okay. Anyway, my keep it. Why not do something election themed? A name I don't believe we have brought up very much on this podcast. JD Vance said.
My favorite author.
Yeah, yes, he's lovely. He wrote an elegy for hillbillies that if you haven't heard it, it's one of the best in that genre. Glenn and Amy, I'm still so fucking mad at them. Actually, I'm most mad at Ron Howard, who, as you know, he needs to get back on track, just period. But anyway, JD Vance said he wouldn't be surprised if the normal gays or something voted for he and Donald Trump. Where did he get that idea? You know where that campaign was going right for a long time? Keeping our names out of their mouths. Girl, I know you haven't heard of shit. I've been to Indiana, and I know why I go there, and that is to buy fireworks. It is not to make fireworks with other gay men. So stop pretending like you know anything about gay people, what they do, their proclivities, who they're voting for, why they would vote for you. This man is like the opposite of somebody gay people care about. Tacky, like maybe the greatest flip-flopper in American politics history, somebody who literally called Trump Hitler and then said, actually, I want to live in the White House and I'm going to work under him. He has no inroads to connecting with gay people, and it was just a joke that he would bring us up all together. So before this election, where I do believe he'll go down, I'm saying keep it to him.
You know what? Standing horrible people is very gay.
Even after you've claimed you hate them.
Yes. I cannot believe she said that. Anyway, I bought tickets to the Azalea Banks concert and I was there on Halloween.
I'm almost a little disappointed with her reason for voting for Kamala Harris, which is she's concerned that Elon Musk will get too close to politics. Now, okay, that's okay, but it was like she obviously has a past knowing him. There was that whole story where she was, stuck in his basement or something? Am I misremembering this?
Yes, she's a former house guest.
Yes, precisely. I'll take it. I will say about Azalea Banks, I don't know that I love even a quarter of her opinions. I do love some of them, but the thing that must be stated about her is she's one of the few people using Twitter correctly. It is an opinion barn. Put the opinions out there, be raucous, get into people's quote tweets, get quote tweets about you. Generally speaking, we're having a fun time when she's not, calling people fat. Which also gay people kind of love. So anyway.
I mean, let's just talk about the Jason Kelce of it all with him. Someone came up to him and called his brother Travis for dating Taylor Swift.
Interesting.
Standing Taylor Swift, sure.
Yeah.
Attending the Eras tour multiple times. I've called many of my friends for that.
Right.
I don't know. Dating with and sleeping with Taylor Swift doesn't seem like a gay thing.
No, not at all. I can't say that's a topic of conversation that comes up at my afters.
Yes, but this guy was filming him, and then he threw the guy's phone, and then, the guy circled back, and he was like, who's the now? And the amount of people who had to jump online and say, well, Jason Kelce can say it. And I was like, we have got to get over this kink that gay people have to still be in high school bullied by the jock and called a like, what turns you on about that?
No, right. Though Who's the Now should be a multicam sitcom. Lots of opportunities for my friends to write on that.
Or a game show. Who's the now?
Sort of a let's make a deal situation where there's 3 people behind doors and one of them's the real.
Yeah, I would absolutely love that. All right, my keep it this week.
Oh, okay.
You know, we spoke about celebrity endorsements with Janelle James, and I would say the Azalea one is one that falls into the category of a celebrity endorsement that actually feels like interesting to hear. Most celebrities, you either know who they're going to vote for or who cares. But this was interesting.
She could have fallen either way too. You know what I mean? Like whatever she chooses, she goes really hard in that direction, except you don't know what the direction's going to be.
Yeah. Also, Rihanna was using the internet correctly again today, too. She was a little throwback to old Rihanna. I don't know if you saw, she posted on social media a thing about how she was, going to try and sneak into the polling place and vote for Kamala because she's not actually an American citizen. And there were angry people in the comments talking about illegals voting and et cetera. And she was giving it to the girls.
Oh,
like
really?
She used to. She, some of these quotes, illegal voting is a crime. Maybe she should be arrested for trying. Shut up, Karen.
Okay, right there.
America's the land of the free. That's true. Why are so many, and all we ask is that you use the damn door. Why are so many against that? This is why celebrities shouldn't be posting their political opinions. Stick to music, sis. And she wrote, where were you on January 6th, sis? Stick to your discounted crotch. We're out here fighting for its rights.
Oh, my God. I miss her being this funny.
And my favorite one, there's a bunch more, but, someone said, ironically enough, she can vote if she had set up her paper for voting as a migrant if she doesn't have a U.S. citizenship. I guess someone has been rejected by the system or acts like it for the majority. And Rihanna responded, I love my Bajan passport. I came here to work and pay taxes. You're welcome.
Oh, it's giving throwback to a time when she made, oh, yes, music.
Yeah.
All right. Let that hang in the air.
My keep it this week goes to a tweet that went viral. It's already been deleted.
Like all great tweets.
Yes. But some people were arguing with the sentiment on both sides, and it was a response to Glenn Powell saying that he asked Tom Cruise how to have a career like his. And Cruise told him to guess. And Glenn Powell said, you choose great roles. And then Tom said, no, I choose great movies, and then I make the roles great. And then, okay, Tom.
Okay, yeah.
We'll get into that quote in a minute.
Yeah.
But someone quoted that with, mind you, Tom Cruise's filmography outside of Mission Impossible is horrible. Excuse me?
That's not right.
Excuse me. That is flagrantly wrong and stupid. And they continued by saying, you know what, I'll give you Risky Business, and I'll give you Top Gun, and I'll give you Edge of Tomorrow, but his movies, even in the last 10 years, are garbage. And I was like, well, baby, Edge of Tomorrow and Top Gun Maverick are like the only other films he made in the past 10 years, aside from American Made, which is also a great film and has a very high critic and audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. So what are we talking about here? Except for The Mummy, I would say that most of his films are actually great.
Yeah, I can think of like some sort of minor or not. There are bombs here and
Jack
there,
Reacher.
but like Far and Away is like not a great movie. It's sort of overblown. His performance in it isn't that amazing, but for the most part, he has chosen pretty wisely. Because I'm sure he is the first person offered a lot of these movies. So like Born on the 4th of July, which he was nominated for an Oscar for, Magnolia, amazing performance from Tom Cruise and from most people in that movie. His John Grisham past. I don't think Jack Reacher is even that bad of a movie. I mean Vanilla Sky. That's at least a controversial film of his, but and of course Eyes Wide Shut. What is this person talking about?
Right, and if you're talking about Magnolia, a film that I would posit he should have won an Oscar for, to be honest.
Over Mr. Michael Caine in The Cider House Rules. Yeah,
I hate that movie.
You also got Jude Law and Talented Mr. Ripley that year too. So,
Yeah, but then Jude Law was doing Alfie and 9,000 other movies a few years later that I would have taken away the Oscar if he'd won it and given it to Tom anyway. So I'm going to stick with Tom. And also, he might be back in the Oscars race, maybe, because he's doing an Inarritu film soon.
Tom Cruise's?
Yes, with and the cast is Jesse Plemons, John Goodman, Michael Stolberg, Sandra Hüller,
Holy
Riz Ahmed,
shit.
and Sophie Wilde.
Woof! A lot of Coen Brothers magic going on there. A lot of general prestige. Also, it's so weird to me that John Goodman has never been nominated for anything before. Like, he was in The Artist, a movie that won Best Picture, but like he's never really had the big cinematic moment, even though everybody agrees he's an amazing actor. So maybe this will score something for him. Remember when you put him on the Connors? What is that, like a 16-year contract or something?
That's the prison Martha was in.
Right.
So I'm going to circle back just finally to that quote from Tom Cruise. Pick a great movie, and then I make the roles great. Tom, sure.
It's also like, are you saying that the role isn't great? And then I don't know. It's a bit of a cutting remark. Like, I'm the smart one involved in all of this and not the writers. But anyway.
Like, I could pick any script. I guess he does say a great movie, but if the movie is great, then wouldn't the characters in it be good already?
Yeah, it's sort of mysterious and going for hidden depth and coming up with vague.
Yeah, which sounds like Scientology.
Right, which, as you know, he is rumored to be a part of.
Yes, I cannot confirm or deny.
He doesn't seem that avid about it. Who knows?
All right, that is our show this week.
Good luck out there.
Yeah. We talked about a lot of American icons this week.
That's true. And we had one with us. Thank you, Janelle James, for being here. And thank you, Martha Stewart, for putting out a beautiful platter of berries and saying, "This is how it's done, bitch."
We'll see you next week, and we'll find out who the president is.